your wrestlers?
Yeah.
Yeah, walk in. Oh, walk down the man at individual state.
Yeah.
Cool, huh, there, guys? I know there's no wrestling mats underneath you, so it's weird. Welcome.
We're missing one, but I don't know if he's gonna make it.
I don't know if you need to show
Okay,
that.
we'll get started. Larry, you want to take it away and just welcome?
I will let Scott give a rundown of the season and who we have here tonight.
Sure. This year, we finished our season 15-4. Some people think we kind of had a down year, but when you look back at our season, our 4 losses, one came to the Division I state champ. The other loss came from the Division II, or Division I runner-up. And then our 3rd loss came from Division III state champs. And then we lost to a sectional qualifier. We beat 2 teams that were at the team state tournament. We beat 7 teams that were at the sectional tournament. We just ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. We qualified half our team to the individual state tournament where we placed 5 out of the 7. We had Danny Pitts who took 6th. We had Logan Schmitz who took 5th. We had Brandon Forseth who took 4th. And we had Scotty Pitts that took 3rd. Riley Workman was a qualifier for us also, and Boone Schmitz was another one, and Kyle Gatis, who's not here with us tonight, was another qualifier for us. But in all, I thought we had a great year. Like I said, we just ran into some extremely tough competition, and we held our own with most of them. So I thought we had a great year.
All right.
That's okay. Great season.
Congratulations. Really nice.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Good job.
Way it goes.
It's just gonna be a first basketball team.
Don't ever take it for granted. Big deal with basketball.
Sending the gymnast next pitch.
Great job. Great job.
Okay, the gymnasts.
Matt, I almost went to the table and sat down, right?
I'll trade you, Mike.
Stay where I am.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't understand. You just go stand over there. Yes, yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
This is part of the Dash Point gymnast team, and I will let Julie give a rundown of the season.
Sure.
You bet.
Well, we went, now you're testing me, not gonna see my stats. We went 1 loss and 3 wins in the conference. We had 2 loss overalls, 1 non-conference, and 6 wins overall. So it was really exciting. That was our best season of the year. We ended up finishing tied for 2nd place, even though Tori obviously hurt herself in the conference meet. So we were shooting for a tie for 1st place at our conference meet, but without Tori, we weren't able to pull it off. But we still managed to get 2nd at the conference meet, and then we took 2nd place at the sectional meet and went on to state, which was the first time ever for our team, so it was very exciting.
And who are your girls?
This is Lauren May. She's a sophomore, Middle Point. Tori Polskill is a senior, and Martina Steffes is a sophomore. Both of these two are out right now with injuries, but we're expecting Martina back next year. Congrats. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. You guys met out there. Yeah, just.
Sending that's the basketball team.
They're used to hearing that, you know? Go around towards the wall, towards
Lucky shot.
Quite quiet. Welcome state champions. There's others that are coming. Come on in if you're in the hallway and like to join us. You're certainly welcome to.
No, I'm trying not to. That's why I was standing there. I don't want to do it.
I guess first of all, I'd say that I'm probably the luckiest guy in Mineral Point. I got to work with these guys for 4 months. We were conference champs, 14-0, and the only team to beat the undefeated Cuba City Cubans this year. They had 3 losses. All of them came by the hands of these girls.
Oh, yeah.
We ended the season 26-2. As Mr. Chambers pointed out, we now own the longest winning streak in the state of Wisconsin at 25 games since Barneville got beat in the finals. Snapped their undefeated streak. Their accomplishments come from the fact that whether I wore them down or they finally believed, but they understood what it meant to be a team. And I've got a lot of people tell me that we had to be the best team there. We didn't come with some individuals, we came with a team, and it's something that I believe makes us successful. And because of these guys, there's a gold basketball sitting in the office right now, some state champions. So very proud of these girls. They earned it and deserved it.
Assistant coaches, any word?
Good luck on getting them to.
I just got to say, I've been doing this for 35 years, and I just want to thank them for giving me the opportunity to go up there and have the most exciting weekend of my life, sitting next to this guy.
I think it is pretty special for us. Clara not originally being a Mineral Point Pointer. And we talked about that on the way home when we had our conversation on why would she come to Mineral Point or why wouldn't she. And She really couldn't come up with a good enough reason to not come, and it, you know, and I'm not just talking about athletics, but just the people, the group that she's been with, and the atmosphere that has really changed her and made it all very, very worthwhile.
We got time for a couple comments from a couple of the parents, maybe? Anybody? Rob?
My wife's met her. I'll make a couple comments. I've been around this group for a lot of years. All these girls are great bunch of girls, deserve a lot of credit. A lot of credit goes out to Mitch. I want to especially recognize assistant coaches. I don't know if they get enough credit for what they do behind the scenes. The girls put a lot of time in preparing for these games, practicing 2 hours a night, then watching film a couple hours a night. But these coaches back here spend a lot of time going on the road, scouting every team they play. Every team's been scouted. Then they spend time breaking down film and just preparing to spend another 2 hours with these girls. And people that aren't involved in the program don't realize the time and effort coaches and assistant coaches put in behind the scenes. So I just want to give a special thanks to them, and congratulate everybody.
Larry, I just also want to say, and Kelly, I think you can attest to this, the compliments that we received on the behavior of the girls throughout the tournament, so.
And the fans. and
Not
stuff.
just the girls, the whole fan, all the fans.
Yeah, yeah. When you have 26 girls sit down in a restaurant, you never know what's going to happen. I'm just shaking hands. I hug you guys. I love that picture where you're like,
I know, and all the comments. I love that picture.
Great job. Great smile on your face. Great job. Great job. Wow.
Hey, don't get me. No hug, just a handshake.
Great job.
Just like going right after.
Good
job. Way to go. Thank you.
Great job.
Start.
Lots more to come.
Great
Coach,
job.
thank you.
Hug it out.
I gave you guys enough hugs over the weekend.
That's what I told him. I'm like, I'm not a hugger, and I hug more people.
Mitch, one more. And he also taught math.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a little caught up in the emotions.
We'll call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Basting?
Here.
Belfin?
Here.
Hay? Kinch?
Here.
Lindsay?
Here.
Stefas?
Here.
Stevenson? Here.
Approval of minutes. Motion by Jeff, for a second. Second by Lisa. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any communications, any board communications received? Okay. Citizen communications? Any citizen communications?
I'll just share one citizen communication that I received. One parent expressed concern about the closing of schools on Friday for the state basketball tournament. It was related to finding acceptable child care as both members of the family were working parents. And so we did recognize that. We did take that into consideration when we made our decision, and we in conjunction with talking with Larry, we decided to continue to move forward with closing on that particular Friday. But I just wanted to let the board know that we did recognize that concern, it was out there.
Glenn, did you have a question?
Yeah, it was kind of an exciting time. The thing I was disappointed in was the WIAA. We had all the officials there at Green Bay, but they stood there and let the fans, student fans from Racine yell and chant or whatever when they were shooting free throws, which is every time we go to a game we hear this lecture, which I don't really approve of because I think morality starts at home and spreads out from there. But you would think that when they were there with a very good opportunity that somebody would have had the wherewithal to go over there and admonish them and end the noise. And the same thing happened at Baraboo, and I tried to speak to the referee, but somebody has to be in charge to take care of that, either that or quit reciting that every game. If you're just going to have some flowery ready, you're not going to back it up. It doesn't really mean anything.
Okay.
And also, I wasn't very impressed with Deb Hauser's assessment of the playing the halves instead of having quarters. That's going to allow more people, more children to play because they will have to substitute more often. And she pointed to the school at Clayton, who only had 8 students on their team. Now, I'm sure if there were some other girls that were adept at playing basketball, they would have been on the team with those quarters or whatever, because probably they didn't have enough girls that wanted to play. It's not going to increase the participation in my mind. I think it's completely cause and effect analysis and a wrong effect from the wrong cause. That's all.
Who's Deb Hauser? Glenn?
She's, I don't know, secretary or second line, or what is she?
Deputy Director.
Deputy Director.
Oh, WIA.
She's director.
She oversees the basketball sports.
All right. Administrative and business services. Approval of gridiron donation.
Got some gridiron representatives here, so if you'd like to stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm Susan James. I am the treasurer of the Gridiron Club. My son is Brant, and he's currently a junior, plays on the team.
I'm Randy Olson, president of Gridiron Club. Austin's a junior and plays on the team.
We have been working with stadium committee, working to raise the donations and funds to try and get our stadium completed. And through our alumni golf outing and other fundraisers and donations that we have done, we are here to present a check for $12,000 to the schools with the express stipulation that it is used towards the stadium funding.
Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
Who would like to be in on the photo?
Other than us, yeah.
The
treasurer.
Second to last meeting.
Yeah. Part of the duty, Larry. I can use that as a background.
Come on, Randy, give me Randy too.
Yeah, Randy, don't think you're gonna get out of it.
Okay, we're close together. All right, here we go. Yeah, good. All right, 1, 2, 3. Looks good now.
I'm told that they take terrible pictures.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
We also did put some literature out for the board. There is a pitch book there that's in front of you that's being used to solicit additional funds. You may want to take some time and peruse some of the literature that's been put together that will be used out in the community to solicit additional funds.
All right, that was very nice. Credit card statement of activity and approval of bills payable. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Matt to approve. Any, do a second first? Discussion?
Yeah, marked a few things here. WSRA.
Let's, the bills payable now, please.
This guy's the State Reading Association.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think you need to pull it from. Thanks.
Yeah, athletic trainer services, is that a monthly bill?
Yeah, that's for Brad Momstad through Southwest Health Center.
Is that just a flat rate then, or?
Yeah, I think the yearly cost to have Brad is $10,600.
This table is included
That is, yes.
in the bills payable. Can you explain the need for this?
Sure. We needed some conference tables in, or for our distance learning lab or collaboration room. We have a spot now that we're actually giving more and more course content out of there. We didn't have any tables. We were kind of makeshifting some tables that were folding tables and folding chairs. So we moved the tables that were here in the boardroom over to that location. And then this table, just as a conference table, to be able to plug in and have accessibility to get power right inside of the table. Was all included, so it's an upgraded furniture.
And we don't really have any ability to not prove it. I mean, it's already been spent, and we can't return it. Is that right?
Correct.
How much was it then?
This table was $3,500. And there was, all purchasing procedures were followed, there were bids that were solicited. Yeah, it also includes a bridge extension, which will be added here at some point that hasn't been added, but that's what will allow the cord to run through the table, so it's not tripped over the floor against the walls. There's a credenza in that as well, and then there's also shipping.
The total was like 6,600?
Correct.
About 60, yeah.
6,600. I mean, it seems to me, and let me just ask the rest of the board members, that we don't currently have a policy that would require prior approval for spending on an item like this. Do you think that's something that we should have?
I do.
I do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do, yes, I do.
I would request that the policy committee, that we have a policy committee meeting before the next board meeting to draft something along those lines.
Well, this Livermore Technologies for Services, what's that, just out of curiosity?
That is a company that was solicited to draft a request for proposal for bringing fiber from the highway vault on 151 up to the high school location. And there's some technical language that needs to be drafted in a way that meets USAC or the E-rate funding proposal. So in order to figure out what that would cost for a company to pull that project together, we needed some professional expertise to write that request for proposal.
That's by fiber optic?
Yes.
That company would have done it for you.
The company wouldn't write the proposal for installation. They will give us the vendor will actually give us a proposal for what it would cost to do that, but we need to be very clear about what the project scope is and where the fiber is to come into through our property and what it would take to pull that into our building. So that proposal, I believe, was sent out to the board for review. If not, I can resend that.
We've already paid money.
We paid the money for the proposal to be drafted, but we have not paid any money to actually do the project. If we receive E-rate funding for that particular project, typically we receive 40% off of the invoice in the form of a federal reimbursement. At that point, the district would decide whether we want to proceed with that project or not.
So we haven't approved that yet, right?
We have not approved that project, correct?
Could have that been brought forward before we paid this bill?
Could it have been brought forward?
If we're going to approve it or not?
Typically, it sure could have, yes. I think traditionally, and this is probably what the policy committee will take into consideration, is that the board sets the budget, and then within the budget, the superintendent has the ability to spend within those budgets, but not over exceed any line item amount. So if you no longer wish to delegate that down to the superintendent and wish to have that at the board level, that's the policy committee's perspective and review. We'll have that discussion.
I'm not advocating that, but if we turn it down, we just lost this money.
That money was to create a proposal that is out there right now on the E-rate funding portal, and vendors can bid on a project to pull fiber from the Highway 151 up to the high school based on that proposal. So that money is spent and the proposal is out there. The project now, we can figure out what that will actually, each company will say, based on these specs, this is what I would do that project for, and then we can decide if we want to go forward. I would anticipate about, so the preliminary quotes we're receiving about $100,000 to $110,000 to do that. Then we could look at the payback from what we're currently paying Charter to transport fiber to the building, and we can do a cost payback and decide if that's a project that's financially worthwhile over the long haul or not.
What do we pay the Charter?
I don't know, there is a Charter invoice in there if you want to look at a similar monthly payment. But that wouldn't be all inclusive, because we also have a WISNET charge for the internet service provider. We have transport to the building, and we have a transport from this building downstream to the elementary building. So we have to break those charges apart and figure out what it is just to the high school. So 2,500, you know, and again, that's all in, but over a 12-month period, it starts to add up. Over a 5 or 10-year period, it starts to pay for itself. And at least it was at least worth investigating, and it's the next step in where schools are headed, is to throw their own fiber into the buildings, and then some of the strands that they're bringing, they're actually leasing back out to other entities like Cummins or others that may want additional broadband. What that was, for those that aren't familiar with what fiber can do, it would give us basically unlimited broadband. A lot of times you're paying, right now we get 100 meg. Fiber, you can pay up to, you know, a premium amount for bringing 2 gig in. We would have unlimited gig. We would never really have a bandwidth issue, and it would be cheaper to bring the fiber directly into the building than it would be to route it above ground, below ground, as Charter currently does, using existing pipelines to get into the building.
And is there much maintenance with that?
There isn't, other than you have a maintenance agreement that if something goes down, somebody's on it right now. But there's no really, that's the piece that's nice about the fiber, is you kind of own that direct line between the highway and the school district, and therefore there's no managed fees for that line. It's not like you're leasing the pipeline anymore, it's just the ability to connect to it, but you own the physical infrastructure that's in the ground.
I was curious, we're going to use canoes down on Bud Lake, or?
Correct.
Because I was trying to think where you're going to canoe at.
Part of the physical education.
Okay. The tanks at Badger Welding, I'm assuming we're renting gas tanks, oxygen, acetylene, or
For welding.
Welding for
classes. Great question. I can ask Mr. Robinson. I don't know if he's ever looked at purchasing versus renting.
It's a lot cheaper. I've been owning them for years. That's all the ignorant questions I have.
Anybody else?
At one time I was asked to have a little bit more explanation on the credit cards. Brought up a couple meetings ago. Just a note at the end there.
I thought it was resolved that if you had a question, you'd ask ahead of the meeting. I thought that's how that was, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't do that, so I thought it was, they were going to put notes, I thought. Maybe it was resolved. They would go that way.
Is there anything I can clarify for you, Larry?
No, it's all,
I think that's a good idea, just to write a note, for example, the different charges, I mean, just put beside it the school board convention, that would answer a lot of people's questions, and that's just an example.
There's a place for notations,
Yeah.
Oh, right, not on the second page.
Okay. We will have a roll call on the bills and the credit card. Angie?
Lindsay?
Yes.
Stevenson?
Yes.
Basting?
Abstain.
Dolphin?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Kinch?
Abstain.
Stefas?
Yes.
It does seem to be done on my credit card for a year, 66,000 a year or so.
If you go shopping and you use a credit card, you spend 12 to 18% more than you will if you use cash.
Personnel services,
Oh,
any other questions on those pages?
no,
All right, personnel services, approval of staff leave of absence.
Yeah, there is a maternity letter that is included in your board packet. Amanda Engel requests a maternity leave. Her anticipated date of arrival is April 2nd, and we'd like to use a FML leave for the remainder of the school year.
You have a second? Second by Jeff. So motion by Lisa. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Items for information and discussion, site visits.
We had talked the last meeting about some possible dates to come in and see PLCs in action, and we've scheduled 2 potential dates, Wednesday, March 30th at the elementary. We begin with a meeting at 2:15 where you meet with the PLC leadership team. Each building has a team of teachers and administrators that work together to shape the direction of professional learning communities. Inside of that site visit, you would be able to see different things and just ask questions. You'd see essential learning outcomes being defined. You'd see common formative assessments being generated. You would see a review and sharing of data, and you'd see some groupings or intervention plans about what are we going to do with students to make sure that we guarantee that students are going to learn essential outcomes. That would be reproduced on April 6th with the middle school and high school. The only difference between the 2 settings at the elementary building, the leadership teams, the elementary teams meet in their classrooms in groups of 3, and at the middle school, high school, they meet collaboratively all in the high school, middle school library. So you'd have one place to really meet with all teams on that April 6th date, where you'd be traveling throughout the building on the March 30th date. I'd encourage all board members to join us for those 2 opportunities to hear directly from teachers about what they like, what they don't like. You can press them with any question you want. They will give you candid, honest, frank feedback. I think we've made some great progress, great strides. There certainly are some challenges that they'll probably allude to, and it might be a better idea or opportunity to understand the ideas behind the professional learning community. So I'll solicit those that are actually attending so we can make accommodations for you on the 30th or April 6th, but if you'd mark your calendars. And if there's any questions or things that you'd like to see in advance, let us know so that we can make sure that we get you to those areas or those professional teams specifically.
I'll try for April 6th, the 30th.
Thank you.
Send us an email or text.
I will do so.
Any questions on the site visit? School safety?
At our last board meeting, the school board had asked me to conduct a survey of various schools that had police liaisons. That was compiled by CISA 3, and I did share that with the board. I'll reshare here today. As we discussed last meeting, there are not a lot of schools that have police liaisons. We are one of 3, Dodgeville, Fenimore being the others. Wazeeka does have a couple hours of touch with liaisons. And I just shared that information for the board publicly as a follow-up to our last board meeting, where that was requested information. Also available in the board package.
Dodgeville and Fenimore, are they full-time or are they part-time?
That I don't know. I can just call over there and find out.
Dodgeville's full-time.
Remind the board, once again, the committee is to split 50/50 with the city of Winter Point.
Correct. Currently, it is 4 days a week, and it's split 50/50, so 2 of those days are supplied or purchased by the city, and the other 2 days are purchased by the school district in a partnership.
Any questions on school safety regarding the police liaison officer? All right, we'll just move forward to the budget development. Will come up again.
Correct. Yeah.
Board policy, building usage fees.
Go ahead if you want to
So
start.
I'll just want to say update the board on fees from various schools.
Yeah, also in our last board meeting, as we were discussing building usage fees, there was a request to get additional information from various schools about what are the building usage fees out there and how does ours compare. CISA 3 again compiled this information on our behalf for all of our members. And I did share with you the facility use fees that we received responses from. And I believe this is included in your board packet, a summary of the use fees. I won't be able to get it all in and get it large enough, but you can kind of start to see a splattering of the usage fees. Again, this is on page 37 in your board packet if you're looking for an up-close version. Then we broke it down further, and we also gave you specific building usage fee policies or building procedures for Argyle through Wazeeka. So you can review those schools specifically with regards to their usage fees. And again, it was just to bring back information requested by the board as a follow-up to our last meeting.
Any questions, ideas? I think it was a sentiment of the board in February to leave them alone.
Yeah, that is how I recall.
All right, the only question I have is insurance. I'd like you to look, just contact our insurance provider and check on insurance for the groups that are in your non-school related groups.
Sure. I did do some of that in anticipation of that question, and I believe it's in this particular document. It's the other one. It's in our rules and use of guidelines and or policy. This is part of our board policy. There it is. So number 11 in policy 830 states that the group and sponsor representative assume full liability for any and all injuries to individuals involved in or present at the activity. So that's the only mention we have around liabilities. Our insurance carrier is EMC. They have stated that any organization that the district deems is affiliated with the school would automatically be covered underneath the liability policy of the school, as well as the umbrella policy of the school. So we get to dictate as a local district and school board who those entities would be. Typically, it's those that have a direct correlation to supporting the programs and activities. The choir boosters, if they were to run something, the music boosters, band boosters, athletic boosters, so forth. It has stopped short of youth clubs and organizations because youth is not directly affiliated with the school. The financial resources don't come back to benefit the school. I think if there's any monetary gain where the school receives a reward for affiliation, where the funds go back to support the schools in some way, shape, or form, we loosely consider those as part of our school affiliation. So we may want to take some time and actually define of all of our user groups which one we agree that is or isn't school affiliated, and predefine which ones would or would not fall underneath their liability policy. But the other thing that could be requested that currently is not being requested is a waiver of liability. Typically they ask you to carry $1 million policy for any liability issues that might happen underneath your affiliated group. And to pull that policy would obviously mean that some of our local youth groups might have to incur some costs for that. But it's a standard $1 million waiver of liability is pretty typical across school districts.
By clubs now, you mean like the wrestling club, because they bought some of the mats and...
That's where we would get that choice, you know, would the youth wrestling program be school affiliated or not? And if they are school affiliated, then the assumption is they're not paying a fee to use the facilities, and they would be covered under our insurance policy. If we're charging those groups for the facility and there's no direct revenue coming back, then we would probably request a liability waiver.
Okay, well, that's just what I was clarify that, because you mentioned clubs.
Yeah.
I know for like all of our tournaments and things that we hold here, we always have any teams coming in sign liability forms, and when they sign up for our youth sports programs on the website, now they have to check that they're releasing us from all liability and things like that. But I've often wondered that if something did happen, where does that go? So it's a good question to ask, and I think it would probably be a good idea. I mean, especially for our youth sports programs to say, hey, he's this, and this, he's definitely included. I know like Lee and Kristen with Halftime Entertainment, they have their own insurance policy that they take out every year for their that part of it, so I know they wouldn't need that, but I would think for our, as a volunteer, as one of the guys who sets things up, I would hate to have me be the representative that would be liable for anything that happened. Yeah, that'd be something to look at.
That's the only reason to look at it, just to protect everybody involved.
Make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Right.
So. You never know how much those liability waivers hold up in a court of law.
So, down the road, let's look at that.
Okay.
And we will move on to budget development.
As we begin our budget development process, I just want to share with the board where we are currently, and some of the budget will start to be developed yet this evening, but currently we have a budget surplus this year that has not been utilized, and part of my recommendation would be to utilize some of that surplus to front load some expenditures for next year, as we are from our preliminary budget projected to have a shortfall next year. So the anticipation is that we'll use some fund balance to cover some of that shortfall as the district projected at the beginning, but if any of those assumptions are incorrect, then we should discuss how you want to proceed. You'll have today and later in the meeting the salary and benefit recommendations, and those are included in your board packet for today. We should have shortly all of our budget requests were to be submitted to principals last Friday. Obviously, we had a little bit of excitement going on, so we've given a flexible deadline for that. But basically what happens is each building principal will receive all the requests from the teachers and support staff in their building for needs for next year. And then they will start to prioritize those needs and start to formulate a building budget where they'll receive an allocation. That allocation that they receive is kind of based on what we do with salary and benefits, as that's the largest portion of our budget. And then once that piece is in place, we can start to figure out what we have left for resources like instructional materials and technology. We right now have no capital projects budgeted. We're holding that at a $0 amount currently. And once we get our facility studies, a long-term facility study review done by Nexus in June, we'll be able to talk about what we might want to do capital-wise for some projects going into 16, 17, and 17, 18. You do have the technology recommendations for next year before you as part of the board packet. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. And then, like I mentioned, instructional materials will start to begin to be prioritized. You have just overall salary increases before you to act on tonight. There are some potential recommendations that may come in for staffing changes. These would be individual changes that we might look at. It's not overall salary of an employee group, for example. Some things that I would recommend the personnel committee gather together with the administrative team and those that are directly impacted by some of these discussions would be the following bullet points. And these are areas of study only. These are areas that were brought to my attention of places that we would like to have a further discussion around doing something with staffing. And one area that was brought up was our current elementary school counselor is 80% or 0.80 full-time equivalency FTE, moving that to full-time and the merits of that. The second is looking at a part-time instructional coach, intervention specialist. Instructional coaches are something we've brought back in the past, and we continue to see that as an opportunity for us to continue to grow as our school district has emerging needs in this area. Grades 7 through 8, we know we have a large school population in grade 6 that's going to move on to grade 7 and eventually grade 8. We need to have a solution for that because currently class sizes would be 31, 32, 33 kids per class. And how do we handle that? Some additional FTE might support that problem. As that bubble goes through, we've addressed it by adding FTE. That may or may not be something the board takes into consideration this year.
How would that work? Since they aren't with the kids all day, but it's, social studies, Spanish, science, it's separate. So how would that work?
It gets really kind of deep into the weeds, and I'm not sure we want to get into that level of detail right now in the budget development, but if you want to take some time, we can start to talk about how that could work. But it might be better for the personnel committee to kind of get the full view, because there's a lot of moving parts to this, and then bring something back in April. So if you can wait, I think it'd be better. Okay. Music has made a request to increase allocations in order to increase participation. So that's a request that our administrative team will be looking at over the next month in conjunction with the Personnel Committee. And we've been approached by CESA 3, the alternative school here at Mineral Point, is something that the CESA is looking at trying to find a school district to maintain those services going forward. And if we were to take on that entity, which has some challenges financially, we would need to look at some staffing and a programming model that would be different than the current model in order for us to really make it a revenue generating and viable option for our district. So those are the things that we would continue to study over the next month and bring some recommendations back in April.
How many kids go to the alternative school now, Luke?
I believe currently there are 9 students.
That sounds right.
Okay, I've got the number and I can share for sure, but broken down by school, which districts, and then which ones are anticipated. Currently, right now, each student that attends the alternative school is, the district is charged $12,500 per student. And that covers their expenditures for the year. And they see a slight decline, I think, of 2 students next year, so from 9 down to 7. Starts to make it not a very sustainable model. But some things we've talked about is to try to grow this program to maybe include, right now it's 9 through 12, maybe casting a wider net, including 6 through 12. Maybe bringing in mental health services, which is something that we're missing in this entire part of the state. So that might give us an opportunity for schools that want to purchase seats or services in that area. Maybe putting in some employability skills or a school-to-work program. And it would be mostly project-based learning. And we're going to talk about some of the digital curriculum later that might have a nice crosswalk with that. But we were just approached on Thursday last week, so we're really in the preliminary stages of thinking about the alternative school and what that might mean for our district, and even if it has an economic feasibility to it. But it's something that could be potentially a revenue generator.
So with those, assuming that there were 7 next year, for example, how would that affect our sparsity aid? Would that put us, so that we would lose that?
Yeah.
Because, 12,500 sounds nice, but it's like if we lose our sparsity aid.
Be something to look into. Yeah. I don't think it would, but I would pull that study to make sure. And then the question is, right now, is CISA is a cooperative agency. We're purchasing seats from them, but if Mineral Point were to be the controlling entity, the question is, would students open enroll into our district to be able to attend that alternate school or not? So there's it's a different model, it's a different shift in how we think about the alternative school, which does address some of the interest in charter school that was project-based and a little bit more individualized learning and pacing, so it might meet some of our needs here. But I think my biggest concern is if the CISA folds the alternative school, that has been a viable option for some of our students that just haven't had another model or another setting to get their education in. And that's across southwest Wisconsin, so we want to keep that as a viable option for those that need it.
Alternative school that we have here versus losing stuff, what's the difference there?
That's a great question, and I don't know, Mr. Brogley, can you share the difference between Wyalusing and I have not stepped foot on their premise, so I can't speak to.
So I could speak more intelligently about the alternative school here in Mineral Point. That is a program that is basically credit recovery and getting students to the finish line, getting them to a high school diploma. Those are the students that just aren't fitting in a regular high school, or just for a myriad of reasons. Teenage parents, a lot of things like that, where they just need to have somebody help them through. They use a digital curriculum called Plato, and they accomplished their credits and they graduated. I believe Wyalusing meets the needs of students that have more behavioral challenges and more of some of the mental health challenges, some of those things. Safety. Yeah.
Do we still have the severe and profound down at the elementary school that we had years ago or not?
We don't. There's some in the middles, right? High school.
We've taken everybody's around here or whatever?
No, we just have our own, we just have Mineral Point students, we're not
Because
taking
when I was
anybody
on
else's
board
students.
before, we ended up building on the school because we took that program in, which should have been left where it was at.
Wasn't aware.
In the alternative school, they can go until they're 21?
With an IEP, yes, yes. But without an IEP, we'd have to be 18 or 19. We did have some 19-year-olds that graduated.
My concern, if you're gonna have $12,500 a student, and you've got, what, 5, 7, 9?
7 to 9 there is right
Okay.
now.
In different grades, how many educators are you gonna take?
Typically, they have one there.
Okay.
And those are flexible hours. There are some students that are there at 7:30 and then leave by 11. There are other students that come at 10 and leave at 2 or 3, so it just really depends. I know a couple of the school districts will actually, on a van or whatever, they'll bring them over and then, come pick them up at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Sounds to me like it's a pretty good idea the way it is right now. Do we want to have 21-year-olds mixing in with our kids, or are we going to send the teacher down there?
Yeah, that's to be studied. You know, right now, the current model is we might have shared staff that could cover that building, and or we need some type of a presence there that's a certified teacher to be able to deliver curriculum. So that's part of the study we'll be looking at in the near future. See if
I would just piggyback off of Jeff's comments, because I think we would want to build a model. Once again, we're just very initially investigating this, but I think we would want to investigate something that was an open or not an open enroll, where they're buying the seats and they're coming there, purchasing that service, and we're just going to provide the service, versus them open enrolling and then impacting our enrollment, which could impact our sparsity. That would be where I would start.
So we'll be working through that, and all board members will be invited to meetings where we discuss what our preliminary thinking is around that. Mr. Brogley's in a unique position. You served as kind of a building principal 2 years ago, which there's a day-to-day person there that is retiring, and Jim Nelson from CSID 3 is the one that was currently overseeing that program for the past 2 years. And that's where the preliminary conversation, just because it's geographically proximate to us, to see if we would have interest in pursuing that opportunity, as they also are transitioning. Their executive director, Joe Price, is leaving. That leaves a vacancy and some transition and uncertainty about the future of some of the programming at CSID 3.
And the sixth grade kids move up, we're gonna lose a teacher down below them?
That's part of what we're studying. We don't really have a firm recommendation there yet. We know that that certainly could be an option, is to move staff internally and follow that bubble up.
That certainly has to be part of the discussion. I agree.
How are the 7th and 8th grade, what's the model there for, do they all go to class together, like, I mean, with one, if you had 31, are they going to be all be in the same class at the same time, or?
Yeah, traditionally,
Or are
it's
there some going to this class, some going to another? Would you have 10
You'd-
of them be in one class or something?
For instance, like math and science would be paired up, so you'd have 31 or 32 in math and 31 or 32 in science.
Okay.
So there just would be 2 sections for 7th grade, unless we do have that third instructor, then we can have 3 sections.
What about the English in that, are they that split the same, is it all split the same?
Yeah.
Do we share 7th and 8th grade teachers between the 2 classes, Vicki, currently? Are there
Yes,
7th graders and 8th graders in one particular?
No,
Not that way.
our 7th and 8th grade teachers, they teach 7th and 8th. Yeah.
But it's not a co-mingled.
Correct.
No, they're separated, yeah.
We will lay this all out very clearly for the board as we get into that. And again, it's very complex. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. We'll give you the current schedule and proposed schedule and some options that the board could consider. And that direction from the personnel committee will ultimately drive what comes back to the board for a full discussion.
Well, we get a copy of how many students are in each class, how many teachers there are for the class, so we know what the size is. Sure. Like 6th grade, is there 3 teachers for 6th grade?
Yes.
How many students are in that class?
That's the big one. That's the.
Yeah, but they're gonna be 7th grade next year, we're talking about next year, right?
Right.
Yeah, I understand that, but how many will be in 6th grade next year?
There's 52, I think, right? There's 52 fifth.
How many in 8th grade?
42. Well, the 7th grade class this year.
Yeah. I've got all of the.
Oh, just so we got it, so to look at it.
Yeah.
We will have all that.
It almost sounds like we would be able to take our 6th grade teacher up, wouldn't we?
But yeah, well, that one.
Should be able to.
That would
I,
be back to 52.
I'm not gonna recommend that.
That's why it's better to tease this out in a different conversation, because it can go in a lot of different directions based on what each person's opinion is. So we'll say that, but it is time sensitive in that through now into the month of April, The April 9th board meeting, I believe it's April 9th, is the one that we want to make staffing recommendations. If we are doing anything with contracts for next year, those need to be solidified by April 29th as a preliminary notice, either offering a contract or a revised contract. So those are some deadlines that we should just note that this is the time to start making some decisions about staffing for next year.
Okay, one more question before we move on. Can a 6th grade teacher be certified in 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah, it depends on what their certification is, yeah.
But it is possible.
Yes.
Is something, a 2-week course through the summer, we could do that, or is that something that?
No.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about if we have teachers now already certified, and yes, we do, that can teach through 8th grade.
Just a footnote on that, the complexity is some teachers are certified K6, which means they can't do 7-8, some are 6-12, which allows them to do 7-8 but not go down to 5th, and there's a lot of different nuances in there depending on their certification levels over time, which makes certain people eligible for certain things but not other things, and so that's where we can kind of lay that out for you in a way that is clear and hopefully can help us navigate through that.
Items for action?
Starting with the compensation, the exempt staff with individual contracts, traditionally this is teachers, but anybody that I would say exempt staff means salaried employees, so we're not talking about anybody that's an hourly employee that's eligible for overtime, these would just be salaried employees. Just kind of a recap, the preliminary budget that we did with Scott Grella projected for a 1.5% increase in salaries, and with that 1.5% increase, we were going to run at a deficit. Next year, we would have to borrow some money from fund balance in order to maintain our services just as they are today. Total salaries in 15-16 was $3,404,000. If we apply the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, that is 12/100ths of 1%. That would increase our overall base salary to $3,408,000, or a difference of $4,085 by applying CPI. Traditionally, Consumer Price Index has not been this low, but as we know, things like gas are cheap right now. Natural gas, regular gas is just one example. There hasn't been a lot of increases from last year to this year. Applying steps, which is the next piece to this, applying steps would be $3,473,000. That's a difference of $68,000 over the base salary. That's a 2.02% increase. This is a good time just to kind of remind you of the Compensation Committee's work, and this is also available in a cleaner copy in your board handout. I think it's page 58. This is the compensation schedule that was created as a joint effort between teachers and myself, as well as administrators, for a bachelor's lane and a master's lane. And off to the right-hand side, you see the box that was crafted, which says if the district lacks resources to fully fund a compensation model, then we would follow the following order of priority in order to determine what gets funded and where the break is. And teachers basically rank ordered these as the Consumer Price Index was the most important thing for teachers to receive annually if funds were available. If funds continue to be available, the next important thing the teachers ranked was steps. And the next thing after that was lanes. Lanes are, again, educational attainment for going from a bachelor's to a master's. And then you have credit reimbursement. Extra duty is the coaching club contracts. If you have a double step for a distinguished nationally board type certified teacher, and then a national board certified actual certification, I guess would be one-time bonus annually if the money's available. So using the projections that we had at 1.5%, when we get to this 2.02%, we have gone beyond what we projected with a surplus of, I believe it was a negative $40,000 for next year. So we've already increased our projected budget amount that we were carrying, and that's where I broke and kind of paused and shared with staff and the board that this is the recommendation coming forward. That would leave then a $0 increase for anybody that's moving a lane for educational attainment, and so on down the line, credit reimbursement, coaches and club contracts and so forth. I believe that in re-looking at this scenario that we want to, as a board, consider giving an educational attainment lane to 4 teachers that have expressed an interest in receiving that stipend. You have letters from 3 out of those 4 teachers. I gave you a hard copy today at the board level, but also shared their letters sent to me. Essentially what what the tenet of these letters were is that they were pre-approved to receive credit reimbursement and lane change upon completion of their masters. Many of them have spent upwards of $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 out of pocket to receive that master's. And now in the third and final year, just before they were going to get that salary increase, we've said that there's no money to fund that increase. I don't believe that that is the way the board would want to proceed, but that is your decision. I think we should grandfather those that were working on a master's in, and if we're going to freeze those that are requesting future consideration for master's or lane attainments. Some of these staff are newer staff to the district. They came in with the employment understanding that they would receive this bump after completion. These masters that they're receiving directly benefit the kids that they're reaching, and you can see that in their letters. Reading specialist degrees that we've asked teachers to go back and get because we need certified reading specialist teachers in our district. So with that, I would highly recommend the board consider an additional educational attainment beyond the 2.02%. That total number, if you do the calculations, increases the compensation total. There would be an additional $18,480 in compensation for staff members that are moving into the master's lane. That would take the overall percent increase or change in the base pay from 2.02% to 2.57% as a full salary packaged stipend for the certified or exempt staff. So my recommendation would be to compensate teachers for CPI, steps, and educational attainment. That would be a total increase of $87,386 over last year's budget, or 2.57%. Can I answer any questions for you?
So if somebody was on step 6, for example, of yes, if they go to the masters, they would go to the 47.3.
Correct. Yeah, they would go straight across.
Straight across.
Straight across, correct.
How many more years do you want to teach?
Most of these teachers, 2 of them are first-year teachers for us. The other are within 7 years, so 20, 30 years.
Then you got $5,000 a year for 20 or 30 years. You've got $100,000 to $150,000.
That's correct.
And how much higher is the achievement going to be when they have a master's degree over having a bachelor's degree? Is there any information on that?
I know that there are studies that show that when you receive a master's in your educational field, that there is educational gains that can be shown, but if it's just a general education master's, it tends not to have that same effect. I believe all 4 of these are actually taking a master's program that is directly related to their fields. Specifically, Brett and Amy are getting their reading specialist certifications, and they go teach reading. Bethany is getting a master's in special education, and Molly is in library media specialist.
Yeah, I'm not trying to muddy the water, I just want, you have to realize when you give somebody $5,000 a year, it's maybe $100,000 or $150,000. It's not $5,000. A lot of people look at it, they see the amount there, they don't interpret what it's going to be over the, and then if you take that on 50 or 60 people, soon starts running the money.
Have we paid into dues for going to schools?
Just this year, in this new compensation model, credit reimbursement was awarded for the first time at $150 per credit. I would imagine, and we can pull that, but there's some that probably have received some reimbursement for credits. The majority, I think in the letters, the majority shared how much is out of pocket. And so even with a credit reimbursement of $150 per credit, there's still been upwards of over $10,000 out of pocket.
You mentioned before the folks at this point in time, when we understand where we're at, how many total would we be looking at that have been told up front that yes, we will, have they started their master's program with the understanding that eventually they're going to get more money down the road, and then, I mean, obviously, we don't want to be a board that tells people one thing and those are running out from underneath them later on, but how many total do we know that are?
My understanding is that is the exhaustive list,
That's
all
it.
four, but I'm gonna check with my building principals. Are you aware of anybody working on a master's program outside of the four that we discussed?
No, and I think you also have to realize that some of them have already obtained pre-approval for some of the courses that they're taking. And I've been here a long time, and that group that you're looking at are outstanding educators. And there are other districts that, we'll hire them. And I think, you know, Brett and Amy too, they are also our reading intervention teachers for 7th and 8th grade. And you can go back and look at the Badger exam scores, and I attribute that to my middle school staff.
I was speaking for myself, when we initially looked at this, I had no idea that we were doing that to the four individuals that were on staff. I would definitely vote to grandfather them at the time. I knew that was the case.
A year ago, Luke, we had the same discussion with the county.
I believe only, I thought only Libya Doyle received her master's last year, but I would have to look. Do you recall? Anybody else that would have received a lane change last year?
So she currently is,
Libya,
she did this stuff. Was it the national board certification that we talked about a year ago?
That was, yeah.
Oh,
And that-
yeah, that was good.
And that exhaust then, in what, 9 years, I was
These were pre-approved by the board, or just by the higher? These ones, the ones we're talking about before.
Those four were pre-approved by the district office, yeah. They have to fill out a credit reimbursement form and share that this is their program, because the masters that they're pursuing has to be considered a bona fide master's that would be worthy of reimbursement. So we wouldn't pay an English teacher to get a health and wellness master's degree. It doesn't apply directly to their field. So we have verified that each one is working in a master's toward completion in a field that they already teach in.
What level are we talking, most of these that you're?
Most of them are, there's two at the 41 level, there was one at the 44 level, and I believe the other one was at the 47 level.
So the 18,480 number you gave us, Luke, we would add that to the 68,905.
Correct. That'd be 87,386 is the total.
With the steps, would everybody get a step increase?
Every teacher that is on the salary schedule in steps 1 through 14, 1 through 13, with the masters 1 through 12 of the bachelors, or 1 through 11 of the bachelors would receive a step increase. Any teachers that tend to be our tenured teachers that are off the chart, there is no step for them to receive, so they would not receive a step.
And is there any performance factor that goes into compensation anymore, or is that?
There is, absolutely, yes. We can talk individually about, certain, individual staff, if you ever have a desire to know more about that. What we're approving now is a compensation package that would be applied to all teachers, but individually inside of that, if there were teachers in plan of improvements or not performing up to expectation, they wouldn't necessarily just automatically receive that increase.
Why does the step have to be 2%?
The step is actually 3%. Yeah, from step 2 to step 3. That
If you
was,
go back to your recommendation,
okay.
when you got
This is the total salary increase from the original base of 3404 to the new base 3473. That's just an overall package increase. So it's not so much how much is, that would be step coupled with, and again, not every teacher would receive a step, but step coupled with CPI would be a total package increase to the district of 2.42%.
That's just salary, right?
That's just salary, correct.
So, and what's our insurance?
3.9%.
It's going up 3.9.
That's coming up shortly. which is less than the 6% projected.
For the, $20 a month, I think, for the single and 40 for the others, so.
Jeff, you raise a good point in that maybe we have to look at this in context more globally, because we did project a 6% increase for insurance benefits, and when they came in at 3.9, we're saving 2% about over what we projected we would have to be paying for benefits. So there's some savings there, but there's an overage here, so it does at least bring up a point of discussion.
I'm not saving 2.1, we're spending 3.9. You sound like my wife when she goes shopping.
Compared to what we were projected to spend, we're spending less than projected.
Do we have to decide this tonight? I mean, it feels like we are taking bits of the budget and you're asking us to decide little parts of it without seeing the big picture. And the language that was in that chart, I can't remember what it says exactly. That if the district lacks resources to fully fund the model compensation will be paid out in that way. I don't feel that we know whether the district is lacking resources or not without looking at the bigger picture. I mean, I certainly think I would not be in favor of, I mean, to the extent there are 4 teachers who've been promised a lane adjustment, I feel they should get that. In my mind, the issue is the step.
Yeah.
And does that have to be that amount? If the money's there, then I think, you know, that seems fine, but
5 teachers.
okay, 5 teachers. Either way,
Just-
I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
I agree with Lisa. I don't feel comfortable for exactly what you just said. I haven't seen or thinking what you just said out loud.
I hate to say yes or no to it tonight.
Yeah.
Is there a risk with not taking action on it based on timelines of
There is not,
contracts?
you know, April will become a little bit more time sensitive and urgent because we do need to offer contracts at that point prior to the April 29th date. So there certainly is time to contemplate the strategy in that salary and benefits makes up 2/3 of your expenditure budget. And once you know that, you know what you have left for instructional resources and technology. And I wouldn't prioritize necessarily technology or instructional materials over just the basic compensation of teachers. I think they're our biggest asset in the district, and good teachers and attracting and retaining good teachers are our #1 priority. And give them material or no material, give them technology or no technology, it's the magic that happens in the classroom. So we can certainly put together a preliminary budget that would throw in numbers for technology and instructional materials, but as soon as you decide to or not to do something with salary and compensation, that's just going to move that piece of the puzzle one way or the other. So it would really help me to anchor this piece down, and then I can come back and backfill, because basically what our principals are doing is they want to know how much money do I have for my building, and they're going to rank order everything from A to Z, and wherever that cutoff line is what doesn't get funded. But we don't know what that cutoff line is because we don't know salary and benefits yet. So we certainly have time, you know, you can digest and ask questions over the next month, but we won't be able to really put together our second piece of the budget until this one's
I
complete.
think, because you know the maximum amount that we're gonna spend on salary benefits, so
Just develop this.
No, it's
Correct, right.
Since we got rid of that asinine one, that was completely.
So normal step is a 3% jump.
Down from one year to the next.
One year to the next. A half step after the same budget.
Yeah, you know, there is certainly the potential for a half step. It gets kind of tricky because then the following year you do a step and a half to make somebody whole, or do they always stay a half a step behind for the rest of their career? So yeah, there's some tricks and nuances. It's nice and clean because you know where you fall on the salary schedule. You can see that you're at step blank, but I think going back to the work of the committee, fully fund priority 1, then fully fund priority 2, then fully fund priority 3, wherever that break is in 1, 2, or 3 or beyond, that's where we pause. But I wouldn't be opposed to half steps. It's a partial solution.
and this is a unique situation with a 0.12 CPI increases all this year versus what has it been with?
I think it was 1.57 last year, 2.02 the year before.
I have a concern that if we go to a half a step and then we fund the credit reimbursement, we're picking 4 teachers over 5 or 5 over 4, and it's like, I just feel like we really need more information. I want more figures of the total budget before I'm willing to vote. Because we're gonna do a half step, maybe we ought to think about doing half a credit reimbursement. That's, I mean, we're grasping at straws at that point in time. I'm not suggesting that.
Has this been compared to any other schools, this chart?
Yeah, I asked, and not everybody is, we're a healthy district, so our insurance rates came in quicker than most, so some are still waiting for their experience factor, and some have not gotten as far down the road as we have, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 districts that did respond. On the median salary increase is 1.5%, the median insurance increase is 8%. The highest is 10%, and for insurance, the highest for salary increases is 2% at Lancaster.
I was wondering about the raise with the math results. Who come up with these figures here?
Those figures were put together by the committee, the compensation committee
Just our
that did
school?
last year. Pardon?
Just our school?
Yeah, just our school.
Did you
Yes.
compare it with other
It was,
schools?
yes. It was compared with multiple salary schedules, lots of iterations, and this would be a comparable salary schedule to salary schedules across this area. So we would say we're competitive. Our starting salary is not leading by any means, and our top end salary is neither the highest in this area.
And the list of priorities was determined by the committee also.
Actually, the teachers, the full teaching staff rank ordered their priority and brought that recommendation to the committee.
I'm sorry, when you were reading those off,
Yeah.
I didn't quite catch what did you, when you started, what did you say?
So salary, the median or middle percent increase is 1.5%. There was 3 schools that had 1.5%. There were 2 schools that had 2%. Next to us, Platteville, 2%. I don't have Darlington, Iowa, Grant, or Dodgeville. Insurance ranged from 5% up to 10%. There were 1, 2, 3 schools that had an 8% increase in insurance. We're by far, and I'll talk about insurance later, but.
So, in the ones that you have there, how does our present staff and salary compare to those 10 districts?
I don't have a comparison to those 10, but I do have comparisons overall to CESA 3 and our average salary for teachers. And again, averages can be skewed by tenured staff, but we are the third highest average salary in CESA. Our average salary is $54,279, but our average experience is also 15 years. So it's not necessarily a good comparable, but we are not, the highest is Fenimore at 57,000, just to give you
Out of curiosity, what is their years?
their years is 18, so they tend to correlate. Interestingly enough, Platteville is 55 with an average of 10 years. So that does give us slight comparable for when we look at geographically where teachers have a choice. Below us is Barneville at 62, then, 54 and 54 for Barneville and Darlington. Experience factors at 18.
And would you say, do you think the benefit package is comparable?
I do, yeah, and I didn't bring that data, but we did get AFG to do some comparables, and we're right there. In fact, our, we have a HRA now, a health reimbursable account. That's right smack in the middle of where the rest of the schools are. There's very few that aren't or haven't moved to HRA or an HSA. The higher premiums the higher deductibles keep the premiums down, so that's pretty standard. We do have some opportunity, and this falls more under later in the agenda, but there could be some future opportunities to get a % off here or there, but right now we are probably right where I would think we would be. I guess the last piece that I would just add is we're not the top of the salary pool, but we are competitive. And at the same time, I would expect that our performance is competitive, and I would say that we are in CESA 3. I would have a bigger issue if our performance across the CISA was toward the bottom and our salary was toward the top. Likewise, if our performance is at the top and our salary is at the bottom. So that's just another piece to maybe take into consideration, is that right now across CISA, we're leading in a lot of categories academically.
What did the demo go up then?
Dental is still being, is up today, still being discussed. It's looking to be a 0% increase, which is what we projected.
Yeah, just throw this out there, kind of rough that out, about 10% increase in master's degree over bachelor's degree for this 10 years down to 12 years down there. So to get about a little over 10% returns in the future, about paying for the credits. If you're going to make $65,000 more in 10 years, maybe that should be their investment rather than ours.
So what's the will of the board to delay this until April?
I get more information.
As I would too.
All right. Is there some questions that I can capture while it's fresh in our minds so that I can prepare to have that information ready for our next meeting?
Well, mine's just a general one, Luke. I guess I just want to know what you're projecting for our total expenses for next year, and is it up or down, or are we going to be in the red next year, as you had mentioned, how much roughly?
Yeah, that's something I can provide now if you want to continue the conversation or bring it back, whichever. That's part of our preliminary budget that Scott Growler gave us, and that's something we can open up quickly or we can table, whichever you prefer.
That's not in our packet?
No, that's not part of it. It was part of a previous meeting packet, but why don't I resend that so it's fresh in the top of everybody's list? And then you have some time to review it, and that way we're not reacting to it.
We're looking at quite a deficit though next year, aren't we?
About 40,000, I recall, 35 to 40,000.
Okay, I did somewhere around 400,000.
That would be year two, the next one after this. This year we have $177,000 surplus, so that's something to take into consideration. And again, part of my strategy would be to front load our technology and instructional material purchases for next year using this year's surplus, so we can free up some of those monies to do some of the other things that we don't have to potentially use fund balance. The other thing that might be of interest is last year we contributed $155,000 to our fund balance. That was a 9.79% increase. There's only two schools that had a 9% or higher increase. That was Cassville and Richland. Most of them are actually in the negative or 0, 1, 2% increases in fund balance. We're pretty healthy in fund balance. Close to 20% of our operating budget is currently in fund balance.
That'll take quite a hit though, in 2 years from now, we're projecting 400,000 loss.
And in 6th grade, we moved up to high school, so much that.
We'll move on to non-exempt staff without individual contact.
The next piece of this would be non-exempt staff or staff that are hourly. In 2015-16, our expenditures were $551,161. Again, applying the consumer price index, and then staff were advanced to 20 cents on the salary schedule, which I can pull up for you shortly. Their total increase from $558,915 to $558,915 would represent a difference of $7,753 or a 1.41% increase. This is the current salary schedule. This is located at page 59 of your board packet. Basically, custodian and clerical are on a 10-step plan, starting at $12.02 and topping out at $13.86 an hour. The instructional assistants are $11.92 and topping out at $13.76 an hour. The CPI basically was 2 cents per hour is what CPI works out to be. So last year, if you're making $12 an hour, this year a 2 cent increase for CPI per hour. And then adding a step would give you basically a 22 cent per hour raise over last year.
And how is our staffing in this category? Are we skewed towards a lot on the 10 step?
Most of our staff is beyond 10 steps. Most of them are off the chart.
So they basically will get a 2-cent raise.
In this case, we did apply the 20 cents and the 2 cents to give them a 22-cent raise. That is past practice, and we did not align that with the teacher's compensation discussion last year.
I believe again with discussions that will take place in the next month, we should hold this over until April to decide. Any other thoughts?
I agree.
Probably should take formal action on that as a board on both of those questions, just a motion to table it, just to get a formal, more for procedural purposes than. I think you can probably do them together, unless somebody requires a separation.
I'll make a motion for both.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Larry. Any further discussion? In the meantime, if anybody has thoughts, questions, contact myself or Ruth.
Is that a 7-0?
All in favor, say aye.
It's just
Yeah.
semantics. The third list, taking the trend of the board, you may choose to wait on this as well, but there are 2 administrative staff that are not in a contract renewal year, that is Mitch and Vicky. Their total compensation is $176,358. Typically, what I attempt to do is just to apply the consumer price index to those that are in a non-contract year. That 0.12 or 0.12 of 1% would be a difference of $211 over both contracts, and I'd recommend just an adjustment for consumer price index.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Matt to approve. Second by Julie. Any discussions on,
No steps,
Yes.
No steps.
so just a $211 increase?
Yeah, over both contracts, annually.
Roll call?
I'm not quite sure how I want to say it, but I don't think that's enough. Must be something wrong with me.
No, keep talking.
I mean, $100, it's like 22 cents an hour for our support staff. It's like, I mean, to me, that's just like a slap in the face. But I'm just gonna put that out there.
Any other questions?
A lot of people had raised 2 and 3, 4 years old.
I haven't been doing 10 years, but.
Probably not, yours is
that's
different.
partly my own fault, so.
All right, we will call a question, roll call.
Okay. Lindsay?
Yes.
Stevenson?
Yes.
Basting?
No.
Dolphin?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Kinch?
No.
Stefas?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the health insurance premium and employee contribution. We walked through the Dean Health Plan, and we negotiated with them back and forth. Their first renewal rate came in plus 6%, and we went back at the urging of our consultants in AFG, and they said, you're one of the healthiest districts we have around. We think we can do better for you. And they went back, and Dean did agree to reduce the rates additionally from the 6% plus down to 3.9%. The AFG is our consultant. They're confident that's the best that we're going to do. It is unprecedented. They have no other clients that are receiving a 3.9. The lowest they had received before this was 6%. Most districts are budgeting 8%. They have had some double digits, 13, 15, 18% that have already been confirmed. As a comparable, our premiums are 44% lower than a neighboring school district, not contiguous but close by. So he recommends locking in the 3.9% and running as fast as you can, in so many terms. It's a very favorable rate. It has no benefit plan changes this particular year. It does give us flexibility to do plan changes in future years where things get tougher budgetarily. We can still try to shave off 1% here or there by doing some plan changes, but I wouldn't recommend any plan changes this particular year and accepting the 3.9%.
Is AFG, is that new they
Yes.
replaced M3?
Yes, correct.
The copay of $20 off to $2,000 deductible
Correct.
per family member.
Correct.
We have a motion on it? I'll make it.
Motion by Jeff, second by Larry. This does not include the dental vision plan.
This does not, no, we'll bring that back. We were still working on that this morning. I think the overall increase will be close to zero, if not zero, but that's part of the renegotiating that we're talking about. So I'll bring that back. It wasn't ready for this particular meeting.
I've got a question, somewhat related. The insurance for administrators, is that the same policy?
Yeah. No changes. Single family, the exact same benefits and the same premiums.
Okay, you have, everything is exactly the same.
Correct.
Are the co-pays and deductibles consistent various schools?
Yes. Yeah.
There's nothing else we can do there. You were talking earlier about maybe 1% or 2 getting fancy with the healthcare plan to try to put more money into the compensation.
Yeah, there's some, there's certainly an opportunity. You could raise your co-pays, your prescription drug card from 0520, you could go to 51040. You could maybe tweak a little bit your reimbursement coming out of your HRA and increase that number. You could increase the deductible to be a $3,000, $6,000. All these could potentially shave off a few dollars, but at this point, kind of alluding to what Laddie was saying, in a couple of years when you have some significant shortfalls, if we play those cards too early, you can't replay them. The premium increases are going to be what they're going to be, and you don't have any future opportunities to shave 1% or so here or there. So I would recommend holding off on that as a strategy. AFG considered that to be wise at this time. This is a very affordable rate, comparably speaking, to save those other opportunities for later date.
Does your staff pay some out of the paycheck at all?
Yes, this proposal has them paying a 12% contribution. The district would pay an 88% contribution.
Is that true for administration too?
That is also true for administration. All administrators pay 12%, and the district would contribute 88% next year.
For what Lily you would say, I just don't think it would be right to, would be nickel and diming our employees. For what little bit you would save.
Especially in a year that the consumer price index is so low.
Non-exempt, same job with them?
Yes, they receive the same plan, benefit, and contribution.
AFG has done a great job for us so far.
I've been very pleased with their work to date.
We see a lot of groups that sit in front of us and make us a lot of promises, and that's, to go from 6% to 3.9 in today's day and age is unheard of, I think. Thank you for us, please.
There's a lot of them deductible.
All right, any other discussion? Do a roll call.
Asting,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Hay,
Can I have a question, Brad, or something?
It's just to approve the 3.9% increase.
yes? Yes, okay. Kinch,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda for action is approval of the technology budget. Worked with Dependable Solutions, Joe Ruski, and E.J. Burkholz. This is found on page 60 of your packet. If you are looking for a better copy, because I know this is small print. The monthly internet access to get access to an internet service provider is $600 per month. So that would be the WISNET billing of $7,200 annually. We have a managed firewall. That's $2,000, so $9,200 off the top, just to access the internet and its filters, which we're required to have in the state of Wisconsin through our basically internet filtering content and so forth. Consulting charges, this has remained flat for now 4 consecutive years at $75,000. I did take out from last year's budget $2,000 that have been awarded for what we call summer projects. If we're going to re-image computers or we're going to redo a lab or those kinds of things, we've typically held some dollars back. We are essentially caught up with our technology and we don't have these big projects in the summer that are going on. There might be some tweaks, but that would come out of their annual service. Again, this would be challenging for us to find somebody's salary and benefits that has the wide breadth of expertise that this group brings, from daily tickets to managing an entire system and its infrastructure. 75,000 would be all in. Just to refresh the board, we are not under contract. At any time we can walk away, but I would not recommend that. I think they service our district well. So our total consulting and miscellaneous services, 84.2. Looking to expand the Chromebook initiative, the one-to-one for grades 6, 7, and 8. This feeds into another possible use of a digital curriculum, and we'll talk about that later in the agenda, but we do have obviously a one-to-one environment for grades 9 through 12. Not all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are currently having access to a Chromebook, and we believe that's the right device for that level. We'd like to expand that. If dollars were to become available, I could see also pushing down to a 5th grade level, some type of device, and at this time we've just made the recommendation 6 through 8. We do have some smart boards that are getting significantly outdated. We're replacing bulbs and projectors, and it's really chomping into our budget as far as replacement equipment, and we just have never had a replacement plan, so we're starting to phase in over the next 6 years, replacing 10 projectors, or 10 smart boards a year for 6 years would be all 60 projectors that we have throughout the building.
What do they run a piece?
About $3,500 a piece. And then the internet filter upgrade, I don't have much information on this other than we're required to have an internet filter. That's part of our E-rate funding. In order for us to receive discounts from the federal government, we have to have a content filter to keep out explicit material from children. And we had a 3-year license agreement that has expired, and this is a recommendation that we replace this from Dependable Solutions, that it's something that needs to be replaced. I can get more information on this, but if they say we need a filter upgrade, I just tend to trust those that are in a position to. Hardware and software, again, we just carry these numbers because there's always the things that we don't see that break, and we need to carry a budget for some of those. And so we've got $10,000 for hardware. Sometimes there's software that needs to be purchased to run certain things, or upgrade licenses that we have that expire, and so we carry that. Total budget $203,700.
Are the Chromebooks, are they the ones that have heard from parents that they're not very serviceable, or?
I can't speak to that. I've not heard from any parents with regards to Chromebook concerns, but the admin teams here, are you hearing anything?
Is there something else we use for them personal computers, or what?
Chromebook is the standard device.
Yeah, it's basically
Almost
this,
exclusively.
this unit here. I mean, we've had students that have cracked screens and they get replaced and things like that, but with some of the Google things, you can't work offline, and some of the teachers can show students, so if they don't have internet at home, but I've not heard from any parents that are unsatisfied.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin just told me they're kind of junky, so maybe he's not qualified to make an assessment.
Certainly, they're not robust like what I would say a normal laptop is. You know, they're a little bit more thick and durable. These are pretty lightweight. They're roughly $250 per machine versus $1,000 for a full laptop. And they're meant to really connect to the internet and be web-based. So it doesn't have the hard drive, doesn't have the CD-ROM, doesn't have much of those other pieces. But what it does have is a ability to connect, to use the Google Apps for Education Suite, and it does come with a case that we provide to try to protect them. But when kids sit on them, it's really hard.
Are we being handled pretty good?
I think overall, I'm pleased with the number of replacements are actually minimal. I'm not directly working with those, but we do have actually some students that we've trained to be able to do some of the basic technology refurbishing, replace the screen and so forth, and that's part of what Chris has been able to develop. So we used to send out for the screens and have Dependable Solution do it at a per hour fee. Now I think they get a free coffee in the library, and they kind of do it as kind of an aside. Not really a business, but kind of learning opportunities. I can't speak to the number, we could probably, that'd be a good study, just how many breakage or what types of breakages we're seeing over a year's time. We haven't really pulled those numbers, but it hasn't been extravagant.
Could we get some sort of understanding of how this would improve the educational experience for the middle schoolers? Because I don't really have any understanding how this would make it better.
What have we seen in the past 3 quarters, I guess, Mitch, of this year with the high schoolers?
Well, I guess first and foremost, you probably see a reduction in the paper supply because we're not printing out a ton of things anymore because kids can submit stuff online. Teachers can assign homework and handouts that they might create in a Google Doc or is available now online 24/7. Students can't say I lost it because it's out there in a folder for them, so they can pick up homework, submit homework. So we've probably cut down on the amount of paper that we've gone through this year. Simply not having to schedule time in the computer lab, you know, specifically like this, the junior class is hitting a huge research paper project that they have to do. So instead of tying up computer labs, the work is done right there in the classroom and kids have access to that anywhere in the building. So if I've got a study hall, I can sit in the study hall with my Chromebook and work on those kinds of assignments. The health class for the sophomores, he uses Google Classroom for all of the things that he does. So a lot of times lecture notes can be placed out there for students if they were absent. So there's just a lot more connectivity and ease of use simply by using the Chromebook. I think, you know, the excuse of I don't have my homework done tends to fall away, and if kids are getting their homework done, then obviously they're having opportunities to demonstrate what they have learned in the classroom.
Do kids take them home?
Uh-huh.
They do.
What percentage would?
We had some of the girls bring them to Green Bay, their Chromebooks.
Did they talk to each other though?
Well, you know, they had their phones and they really were not watching.
I think we need to have like a half an hour a week where they just sit and talk. They can't play with their telephones and whatever. Adults included, we better have an adult learning class too.
You know, when we first started this, they talked to us about the life expectancy of a Chromebook, and they mentioned 4 years. And so we thought 9 through 12, kid would get a Chromebook coming in. Obviously, you have to replace it for becoming freshman all the time. If you add 6 or 8 on top of that, you're basically buying 2 classes worth of Chromebooks. Well, maybe not fully, but.
Yeah, your point's taken. You know, this particular year, we're gonna wrap the seniors around to the freshmen and try to get 5 years out of them. The senior class that received the Chromebooks received the latest, newest edition that just came out. So I think the software will be a little bit more current and probably transcend 5 more years or 4 more years. So that's one that you know, we're gonna try to push the envelope on that as far as we can. But you're right, can a 6th grader make it all the way through 12th grade in this, you know, in basically a 7-year cycle? To be seen, and maybe not, but to Lisa's question, you know, we can bring back what some teachers are currently doing in their classroom with Chromebooks, and the first thing you'll hear is there's just not enough of them to go around. We're waiting for a cart from somebody else's room to free up so that we can do our thing or our lesson. The digital curriculum and the blended learning is something that the math would like to expand beyond just 1 grade into 6th through 8th, and it creates some other opportunities for formative assessments is the latest piece that we've been pushing in, instant feedback, where kids are responding. Teacher sees right now kids have it or don't have it, they're instantly reteaching on the spot, or they're moving on depending on the number of kids that are showing and demonstrating knowledge. So certainly we have a lot of professional development that's still to be developed, but the kids are certainly using the devices to their full extent.
We have 2 Chromebook cards down in the middle school, which isn't enough for all of our students, and they're used constantly in the classrooms.
What's on that card? 30 or 60?
26 in one, and then maybe.
I know it's not, there's not, there might be 30 slots, but I know there's not 30.
Yeah, there's like 25 or 26. And then part of it also is, you know, like Luke had mentioned, the digital curriculums that we want to use. And, you know, there's students that sometimes don't have access to anything at home.
What was pulled off of this budget is in our replacement schedule, we would have replaced the middle school and high school labs next. The middle school lab hasn't been touched prior to my arrival, and the high school lab was redone 5 years ago when I arrived. Both of those are ready for replacements. Roughly 60 computers, $1,000 for a desktop and monitor, $60,000 that we didn't put in this budget because if each student has their own device, we really don't need a lab. We would probably pull down the lab. We still have a station of 5 to 12 in the district that they could still use to print if they needed to print, but that's just minimal. We keep our 5 or 10 best machines and we just basically eliminate the labs and go to a one-to-one.
In what area schools, how many of them have provided Chromebooks to their middle schools?
In area schools, I can only speak to a few that I know offhand. I believe Prairie du Chien and Barneveld. Mount, I don't know about Mount Laura.
I can find out and.
Yeah, we can do a CISA survey. Find out.
Unfortunately, this is one place where I have a problem because it's like, I totally understand where you're coming from that you want one-to-one from middle school, but I'm thinking about it, I would rather personally see us put the money into our staff than I would this. I mean, is there not some way that we could compromise and look at, say, 60 or 90 Chromebooks and put it on 3 extra carts down there, and you would save half of that 52,000, and that's money we would put in our staff. Because you said it earlier, Luke. That's our most important asset.
I think we can do both.
This model is 6, one time.
It's about 6 to 8.
If the only thing is they wouldn't be able to take them home.
True.
If they're part of the cart.
Moving back to the top of the, for the consulting, we have 75,000, I don't know how many hours per week they spend or hours per month. Would it behoove us to put out a request for proposal for that?
Certainly could. I'm not aware of any other managed consulting firm that would do this type of work in the southwestern part of the state.
That's actually a reasonable figure.
You know, we can pull an invoice from Dependable, but they do a very nice job of itemizing all the tickets that they have.
Do you see their presence less as you go down the road?
Certainly less than 5 years ago, because a lot of the things are stable, they're robust, the uptime is 99.9%, very seldom do we have downtime. But at the same time, just today we had a scan issue that we weren't able to scan. They were on site troubleshooting it, and they're here when we need them, and we're not paying for them when we don't.
And I'm not questioning their ability. I think it's a really good company too. However, maybe we could have a hybrid fee where it locks us in so many hours, and if we have problems over and below, it's time and material after that.
We can look at a model that's different. It's essentially the fee structure is based on the person that needs to report to the incident. So if it takes a level of expertise that's lower than their entry-level technicians, and they bring in a larger person to solve a switch issue or a server issue, then we pay a different fee based on the person that comes in.
I guess hours on site too would really help us see what justifies that fee, or hours not on site, but they're working on our system possibly.
I remember him sitting here and basically saying, well, this is our fee, and we believe in it, and we're trying to, do what's best for your school there. If you want to walk away from this at any time you can, and see if you can save money on the other end. But the confidence level of him knowing that they're doing it for as little as possible was pretty impressive, I thought. I just felt like we were getting a great deal. If you start, it seemed like he was telling us that if you start messing with the fee that they charge, that they would just walk away and go to a different district from us. I hate to lose them to a different district and not be able to do it.
Well, additional Chromebooks add to that price.
No, I'm saying that.
Yeah, I remember that.
No, not as a per fee, only if it needs to be a service or
They
something.
just say, oh, we're going to do it with somebody else that we don't hear.
See, they already switched it.
Yeah, they have quite a few schools in this part of the state, and so they have one rep that services Darlington and ourselves, and so they kind of put one person on 2 schools. That's the way they, that's kind of economy of scale, so they're not putting a full-time person in
I
any
just
one
know that
school.
not all parents.
And maybe just
addresses with mail stuff.
List of how many hours they spend.
Just thinking of the hours.
I get a monthly spreadsheet with the tickets and the hours, and I can send you all the way back to July.
You would be able to
Send that out.
let
It's kind of one of those things, though,
kids
like,
check out or
It
no?
doesn't matter if they're doing. Honestly, I mean, that's, so it's kind of hard to say, well, you're over here this hour.
So like Brad, like Brad said,
Is
there's
that when something
something
seriously goes
on?
Well, especially tough age.
I'm just asking, how are we getting?
I could see the 8th grade.
$75,000, no.
Oh.
I gotta make sure I don't
I don't
start getting some.
Every year, if they come $100,000 on the budget, replace them on it.
The Chromebooks.
Replace them.
See, I still think that we could try to go that way.
The smart board replacements, going to Jeff's comment about finding money to put into the compensation model. That is 10 smart board replacements?
That is 10, correct.
In how old are them 10 currently?
There's certainly one up here in the library, down in the lab, and most of the elementary were purchased prior to my arrival, so they're more than 5 years old.
But are they working?
Some are not working. We don't have any spares currently because we've used up all of our spare equipment. We're kind of parting them out right now to keep some running, so we have no spares. The ones we have, everything is up and running right now except for, I don't think the lab is what I would consider usable. It's kind of a bad screen, really blurred and low resolution because we borrowed some parts from that. We don't have any extra projectors. We're buying bulbs regularly. And so if one goes down, we're literally out of a teaching tool.
When a bulb goes, what does that cost?
They're a couple $100.
But there again, I guess I would like to see you consider five or six and take that excess money over per staff.
That would be a 12-year replacement schedule, and they're not going to make it.
What's the life?
Right now, we're finding out that it's probably about 7 years.
Might they go away?
You know, I guess you could say they could go away. I don't know what technology will bring, but certainly there is still a classroom standard across many of the schools that I'm in. They're highly dependent on it. As teachers, when a smart board goes down, bulbs go out, it is paralyzing at this point. We forget that we used to teach on whiteboards sometimes, but it is mission critical that we get that up and running ASAP because so many lessons are actually tied into the background of the smart board, the notebook software is what it's called.
So I assume we have the extra bulbs and you need like one backup one. But if you had one backup one available, that could then replace ones when they break, I mean, why do you need more than that?
We started this year with 4 backups and we're down to 0. And that's kind of the reality of where we're at. They're breaking faster than we can repair them. And the next one that breaks, we are going to have to buy one with this year's money that's not budgeted. So again, it's trying to be proactive and getting ahead of things before they break rather than reactive and not having teachers with tools after they break.
So have these come down considerably in price?
5
years ago, for example?
No.
We quit buying them, they'll come back.
Will Chromebooks replace whiteboards? Smart boards?
No, not in that traditional sense. The whiteboard is an interactive flat screen that you're moving things on, and the Chromebooks are actually feeding information to and from that in the classroom.
Ready to start a smart board. That lasts a little longer.
8 years.
What we could do is start by having a budget. I'm going to stop short there because we just wouldn't be able to weather a 12-year replacement schedule. At such time that they move to some other technology, then we shift as well. But I think we have to get on a schedule just like we are with our computers and try to replace as we know these things are aging and.
I understand where you're coming from, but it's also we're the ones that have to go out to the taxpayers and justify replacing something if it is working. And I understand that you have some that aren't, but people look at what we're spending on technology and someone will really question.
Certainly, how long does it take to swap one out? Just a matter of an hour? Afternoon after class?
Yeah, Elf's pretty good at it. We do need 2 people because you've got to initially get the old one off the wall and the other one on there pretty heavy. But I would say in a couple hours they can pretty much have one removed and installed. Again, the 35,000 that would be used for the smart board replacements was actually pre-purchased this year with the $177,000 surplus that we have available to start to front load some of those purchases for next year. So this would be something that, again, the technology budget, the hardware that we could purchase now wouldn't necessarily go into next year's budget, but it would need to be approved as a pre-approved expenditure.
Again, we have an idea of what you're thinking there. I think this is something that we could act on in April or even out into May. Any other opinions?
You bought the 10 now, didn't you buy the 2 a year from now on?
We have 60 total.
60 total?
Yeah.
That would be enough.
No, that'd be another 50, so yeah, 2 year, 25 more years before we replace the next full set.
You got 60 smart boards?
They're $3,500 a piece.
Yeah.
Well, the questions I've heard, Chromebooks, not for all 3 grades in middle school, maybe 2 grades. Smart board, maybe cutting down the number of smart boards. I had a question about the consulting fee there to put out a request for proposal. Any other thoughts, questions? Am I missing anything?
I know you wanted me to send invoices in the past so you can see how that hourly was.
I would like to see that.
Sure.
And our man from Prairie Sheet.
Yeah, Joe Ruski, he can join us for the next
And
meeting.
I don't think that's necessary, but maybe just a phone call to him to ask him, to have him look at our invoices. I do think he's that kind of guy. I think we've had a good relationship with him, and if things aren't breaking like they were 5 years ago, because there was a while that they were here just about every day.
Yep, he's welcome, or willing to come back anytime the board wants to inquire about any of this.
Vicky, will that cause a hardship not getting 6th grade
If we do Chromebook carts, we should be okay.
with 2 grades?
Well, all 3 grades share, they work it out with 2 Chromebook carts, so if we were to add an additional 1 or 2 carts, I mean, it would, we would have more access on a daily basis for all classes.
Yeah, mistakes. But I asked over there, they both said that
I said, yeah, they'd have to stay there, but I said, there's probably some middle school kids, you don't want them to take the Chromebooks home.
You were thinking like, in terms of impact, Chromebooks for the middle schoolers or smartboard replacement? Smartboard replacement would be,
More.
I mean, in terms of our entire district.
Yeah. Yeah. But we still do need more Chromebooks down in
Yeah.
the middle school.
you can go with the 35,000. If you went down to half of that, there's 25,000 that I can
On the smart board replacement, I would hate to see us take a perfectly good working smart board and throw it away.
Well, I don't think, we would never
We
do
wouldn't
that.
do that in storage,
Yeah,
we
we
would
would.
as a spare.
Okay. The new ones would be as a spare, the ones that.
We would probably take some of the oldest ones out. The resolution is really dim, the bulbs aren't very good. We would put a new one in and keep the bad one as a spare.
We, just for the purpose of improving some of this, I think we should approve. Well, we break it out.
We should. Yeah, there's no motion on the table this time, so you could do, partial approval.
Of the 60 you have, most of them are 5 years old now?
A good majority of our
Those are going to collapse, won't they?
Yeah, yeah. So it'd be better to get ahead and start the cycle before they all kind of hit at once.
And I've been in classrooms when the smartboard is not working, and it is kind of like debilitating to a teacher who's got things planned out, and, that affects an entire classroom of 20 kids, or.
But we could put one of our new ones up and not have it work in 2 years too.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's risk with any of
Chris and Carrie have developed a priority list for which rooms would get them first, so they've got that.
I would make a motion to approve the 84-2, the 35,012, 20, and under the Chromebooks, I would make a motion for 2 cards, roughly 60. To come.
Yep.
Second.
See what we can get.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, that plan, didn't you?
So the Chromebooks would then be for the 7th and 8th graders. Is that how I'm doing that?
For those small.
Just be on the cards.
More cards, so
They won't be taken home.
So
I don't like the idea of this.
with what we have now and what we're adding, how many will we have totally? 4 cards. 4 cards of,
20-something, 20.
If they were at 26, I said 30.
Yes, if we could have 30 and 100.
so that
30
would be
could
a
have
separate
bigger
college.
classes.
Or we're not.
Yeah, now remember
6
that,
at Penny.
not only the Chromebook, but also we would need the card for it too, because you're gonna have to pay for the card. Don't ask me how much that is, because I don't know.
It's about $3,000.
Can't the tech get big cards?
It's roughly somewhere between $3,000, it's right on there. Yeah, I remember correctly.
Any other discussion? Will that work, Vicki, with what we're talking about with the Chromebooks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, we'd like to be one-to-one, but I totally understand. And I think if we can get 2 cards, I think the staff will be happy that they'll have more digital access, so.
Yeah, we can keep an eye on things, and if 7 years from now, we still got Chromebooks that are working, then all of a sudden, going one-to-one down that far, it's a little bit easier if we know if kids start in 6th grade and get through too, so.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Andy?
Oh, you want to read what it is? Then we got a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to change some figures.
We were, yes.
Yeah. So we'd be approving the 84-2 consulting miscellaneous services, the 35,000, which is the smart board replacements, the 12,000, which is the internet filter upgrade, the 20,000, which is miscellaneous hardware and software total, and then going back to the Chromebooks one-to-one, it would be basically 2 cards or 60 Chromebooks worth of, here you've got roughly 175 budgeted, so it would cut that by more than half.
Bring that down to, is it 250?
Yeah, I believe it's like a 225,
It's
250.
roughly 15,000 and then.
Also, the cost of the cards too.
Wow, plus you need your 60 cases.
You wouldn't need
No,
cases.
you wouldn't need the case, you just need the 2 cards.
But your management license, you could still, so.
That'd probably stay the same, won't it?
Yeah, it's divided, it's a per, so you take that number divided by
Oh, okay.
175, and it's the,
So you're cutting it in half?
essentially more than half.
Almost
Yeah,
a
almost a third.
Almost a third. We're
So
gonna
you're
spend
gonna
a
have a
third,
third of what?
save 2/3.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion?
Basting,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Kay,
Yes.
Kinch,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
So we're spending 15,500.
Well, plus the management. And then we have a couple
Well,
of.
I thought that was totally.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
All
It's just
right.
taking the cases
High
out
school
there.
course additions?
Per board policy, anytime we add a course, that would come to the board for approval. The high school is recommending approval of a math intervention course. It parallels the math strategies 1 for Algebra 1. This is actually, let's see, Algebra 1. We already have Algebra 1 strategies. I think I must have.
That's the math strategies class.
Yeah, so this is our current class that we have. We've already approved Algebra 1 strategies. I duplicated this. We'd like to put in a strategies class for advanced algebra. Essentially, this is an intervention course. It is meant to support students that are already taking advanced algebra, but have been predetermined that they might struggle or are struggling. So they're going to continue to work on their skills both on the front end to make sure they're ready for advanced algebra day by day. And if there's something they don't learn in advanced algebra, they would have the opportunity to have some extra remediation time. This is a course that is not offered as a math credit, but but it is offered as an elective, and so it would count as an elective course, even though it's certainly a math course through and through. So we recommend.
If you think they're gonna struggle in the advanced algebra, why are they doing it?
Well, there's students that just need extra supports. We're not certain that they're going to struggle, but if they have had a past experience of struggling in Algebra 1 or geometry, we want to build in an extra layer of supports to make sure that they master the course. This is typically the course that most students strive to get through to become college and career ready. It's the depth of knowledge that's deemed to really put somebody in a position to command a good career job.
Are those students not able to be in math strategies as it is now? Is math strategies just for?
Right now, it's just for Algebra 1. Yeah, so we've found so much success in the Algebra 1 that we'd like to expand that course offering to include a course for Algebra 2.
Plus, a graduation requirement requires 3 credits of math, and that is the 3rd credit necessary. I mean, you wouldn't skip that and take a college math prep or pre-calc, which is offered in that senior year.
Good point.
Do the math, who would teach this?
The advanced the strategies class would look at, it either come down to Mrs. Notham or Mr. McWilliams, depending on availability of.
I'm just
teaching.
wondering if they're not, I mean, they're not already fully loaded. But I'm just asking whether this requires hiring somebody new, or if it's one of, it sounds like it doesn't.
No, this was proposed by the teachers. They wrote the course content up. They believe in this course. It would not, there's no request forthcoming for additional FTE to teach math. They are busy, but we would be creative. We have the opportunity to take some upper level math courses using telepresence, which could release a day. It depends how our course numbers fall as well. And we are picking up more kids in Algebra 1 in the 8th grade are starting to take Algebra 1, which is pushing some of our course content down with Mr. Chambers as well. So combination of all these, we believe we can do this in-house.
Is this leading toward calculus being online and not in the classroom?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it certainly could be an outcome, but it's not a predetermined pathway toward that.
And if it was an outcome, when would that outcome materialize?
We're doing course requests and tallies right now. Some students may choose an AP Calculus telepresence option based on schedule, based on multiple factors. No decisions have been made at this time, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to say that I think there's either 12 or 13 students in-house that want the AP Calc for next year. So we would run that course through Mr. McWilliams. And classes like that kind of get a higher priority in scheduling so that you can get those kids in those courses because it is, what you say is a singleton, it's the only one we're offering, and it's only going to be 1 hour of the day, so you try to lay that in somewhere where it doesn't conflict with anything else, so those kids all have the ability to get in it.
So we don't have algebra in 8th grade anymore, right?
Yeah, there's some kids in every.
Okay, I thought that went out with Common Core.
We have a motion. Advanced algebra strategy.
You have to have advanced algebra to get in college.
Just this one right here, just there.
Yeah, they said these 3 years.
We have a motion to go to second reading.
Advanced algebra, algebra 2 class.
Any other discussion?
4 year.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Total digital curriculum expansion.
The last piece is, for action is the approval of the digital curriculum expansion. Currently, we are using Wisconsin Virtual School to offer online courses annually throughout the courses. Each course is roughly, I think, $250. We spent up to about $8,000 to purchase online courses for some students that cannot get a course either in their schedule or want to take a course that we do not offer. The middle school mathematics uses a blended learning curriculum called APEX. It is a course that allows you to kind of self-pace your math instruction, coupled with direct instruction from the teacher. And those two create what's called a blended learning environment. We looked at expanding that scope and sequence as part of our math curriculum review. We were looking at purchasing textbooks. Textbook companies were running about $30,000 to replace a series of textbooks. Once you buy them, they start to date, and we investigated the opportunity to look at Apex as an opportunity for delivering course content in addition to what we're currently offering in 7th grade, and expanding that to 8th grade. Deb Soper would like to use it in 6th grade. And that has other features to it that includes, you could offer this course during summer school, you could offer it during your response to intervention or access win time, access time here at the high school, as type of a remediation or reteaching some of the foundational skills that kids might not have. It comes with an ACT preparation class that could be an elective and or a required course as we look at some of our goals around ACT. And we talked a little bit about the alternative school. It could certainly have some application there if we were to pick up an alternative school. That's to be determined. I just put it in there as it's got a lot of different uses besides just math. As we priced it out for unlimited seats for grades 6 through 12 in all courses, it was actually only $4,000 more than we were currently already spending in our Wisconsin virtual school environment for courses that we already take. If you happen to look at the brochure in the Apex Learning, this would be on page 61 of your packet. To courses. See if I can turn this and load up.
This isn't going to replace the Wisconsin virtual school.
It will replace some of the courses, but not entirely. For instance, if there's a course that's now offered here that the Wisconsin Virtual School offers, we would still have that available. So we would have kind of a dual platform. But as you notice, many of the courses that are currently being offered by the Wisconsin Virtual School are also offered through this curriculum. For instance, AP Stats is one, and here's AP Stats. So this would be an all-inclusive, as many kids that want to take AP Stats can step into this course at no cost, whether they finish or not. Wisconsin Virtual School, as soon as a kid enters a seat, we pay for it whether they complete the course or not. And we found this curriculum to be more engaging than Wisconsin Virtual School, a little bit more adaptive. It will give you a pre-test and allow you to accelerate through things you've already shown prior knowledge on, and only have to take the course in the areas that you don't have knowledge about. So it's not busy work, it's meaningful work, and we found a lot of success with this in the middle school, and we want to try to expand that scope and offer other classes to other students. So to that end, Wisconsin Virtual School has some unique courses that this doesn't offer that would continue to exist. One of them that comes to mind is computer applications, or I'm sorry, it's a app. I think it's an app making class.
Coding?
Coding, thank you. And so that is just not part of their suite. But they do have all but, I tallied them up, I think there was something like, if there was 20 courses that we've taken to date, all but 3 of them were able to be offered through this learning environment. So that would reduce that budget significantly by offering it in this all-inclusive package, but still having the option available for any kid that wants to take a specific course that may not be offered through this particular.
Can you get us a link so that we can go on to that or not?
Yeah, it is apexlearning.com, I believe, and we'll just see if that is. apexlearning.com is a link that you can go to. There is some reviews out there that have shown that students in AP courses using Apex Learning outpace the traditional national average for course completion and success rates. I think it's 44% of ACT students score 3 or better, and in the Apex Learning environment it's 54%, for example. The state of Washington, more specifically Seattle School District, has been using this, and they have created inside of their school district, obviously a large school district, much like a Madison. They've created a school that is just a totally Apex immersed school, 9 through 12, where the whole curriculum is self-directed and personalized. Your scope and sequence, what we're seeing right now is kids that traditionally would have been in a math class with Mr. Chambers are doing 1.5 years worth of math in a year's time. And so over 3 years, they could basically, or 2 years, they could basically accelerate 3 years worth of math curriculum, demonstrating knowledge that they have understanding, And that's been pretty powerful for us, especially as we talk about the individualized learning strand that the board has put as part of a strategic plan to try to investigate more around. I would consider this at the very early learning stages for us about how we can deliver curriculum in a 21st century environment that's not really bound by traditional time units of 45 minutes in a class period, and that's all we have to teach you math today. It doesn't really have the walls where the teacher has to be the only form of content that you receive. There's alternative ways to get content and self-paced. You know, our local data would suggest that something's happening in that middle school math that's taking from 5th grade up through 8th grade and accelerating them from 50% proficiency to 80% proficiency. Can we attribute that directly to Apex? I don't know. We don't have that longitudinal data, but there's certainly something magical happening there, and we want to try to push this out in 6th through 8 and try to get it not just in one class, but in multiple classes.
So does the Chromebook thing that we just talked about
It does, yes.
impact this, right? Or it's-
You've solved it on some levels, but not totally, completely exhausted it. For instance, Ms. Soper was one that was already currently using the sample curriculum for some lessons as kind of a tutorial before she, kind of drive it before you buy it. If it was available in 6th grade, she would push down and do one class in 6th grade of math using the Apex Learning Environment in conjunction with her teaching. A cart will allow that to happen on some levels in the classroom, but it won't allow students to take the laptop home and continue their learning beyond, or to remediate, or to reteach or re-get a lesson that they maybe didn't get. So we'll work within those constraints, and
They could use the lab at that point, on their free time or after school, couldn't they?
correct. The lab machines are on their last leg. I'm not sure if those would, because we're kind of pushing in the one-to-one, we're kind of shutting down the labs because kids would have computers available some other way, but I guess we could try to live along for another year of a lab either upstairs or down.
How many computers are in the lab?
Well, right now, Mr. Chambers is using a laptop cart for 8th grade at Apex. And those laptops are like on their last leg. That's the only thing that.
Will Chromebook be able to replace that?
Well, yes, and that's the only thing that concerned me about limiting the amount of Chromebooks for middle school was the fact that Mr. Chambers is going to want Chromebooks for every hour of his math classes, and Mrs. Soper is going to want Chromebooks every hour. So then your other teachers will have limited use of the Chromebooks. So basically, there'll be a cart, and Mrs. Brown teaches math too at the 6th grade level, so you're gonna look at Chromebooks in those classes the majority of the day.
So how many Chromebooks do we, or how many computers do we have in the lab presently in the middle school?
Working, probably 18.
So should we maybe rethink that? I'm not willing to do the one-to-one, but maybe we should consider buying another 20 Chromebooks and putting them in the lab that could be checked out.
I think if we could just fill the other 2 carts, see how many those other 2 carts hold, and fill those and then order 2 more carts.
That was gonna be my suggestion too, is to take back the direction the board's given us this evening to our middle school team and say, how would this unfold and what do we still need? And then bring that back to the board. It might be filling out the carts, it might be we just need one more cart, we really need to go one-to-one. Wherever that's at, we'll bring that information back.
I would like to hear that from the staff, to see what they have to say.
Feel sorry for yourself.
No, I mean, that's okay.
What happened?
We'll get computers at some point in time with the elementary. We understand where we're at.
That's something you can do at home.
Yeah, you can log in on a computer at home, yeah. So.
Well, but she's,
Well, some kids don't have computers because they can't get internet or can't afford internet, so a lot of their work will have to be done in school.
But they could get into the lab before school and after, can't they?
Yeah.
Well,
Now you can work at your own pace rather than waiting for the schools to get in the class to dictate the speed at which you learn.
Once you master the content of the subject or the lesson, you can move on. Right.
Yeah, we can always revisit this. Well, to to Mr. Brogley's point too, part of the one-to-one was to push the existing carts at the middle school down to the elementary to kind of fill out a fifth grade suite, but if we're gonna retain them up here, there might be a request that comes from the elementary to put some devices in the fifth grade classroom. So we'll try to capture what our needs are. We thought we had that to the best of our ability this round, but we'll come back and back.
So basically, they finish one course, say, in half a year, you go to the next one. And when you're 16, you get a job.
Yeah.
So, it's gonna cost us an additional $4,000 over and above what we're spending currently. Do you have a motion to approve the digital curriculum expansion? Move to impact cities. I'll move. Motion by Jeff. Second. Second. Any discussion? Roll call. Angie?
Basting,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Hay, Kinch,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
Superintendent's report. Just some housekeeping items before we move into the legislative action. First of all, you should have received as part of the board materials today a yellow piece of paper that just is a reminder that the Sunshine Club is in need of some dollars to help replenish. We use that for at times where some of our staff member and friends have lost a loved one. And I will share a heartfelt card from Ms. Kroll, Judy Kroll, which we use some of those sunshine funds for at the loss of her husband, so I'll share that with the board. Also today is Pi Day, March 14th is 3.14, and 3.1416, the numbers continue. How many digits did the student get today?
I don't remember off the top, I think it was like maybe 38, but he went with a different strategy. He only gave himself 20 minutes this year to memorize.
Was the same individual?
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Skylar
Twain. Yeah. Pretty good. Last year he did 200 digits.
So there's pie over there for
Yeah.
everyone, you must try a piece.
This is, who's our?
Kristen Mitchell.
Kristen Mitchell, so we need to thank Kristen for
It's
the
like
pie.
walnut
Angie,
chocolate.
Because I think she purchased.
Okay, so please have pie today in celebration of Math 3.14.
No, I'm pretty sure probably not. Really sure.
Joel, my apologies, you have to backfill this because I'm going from memory, the forms are on my desk, but
You remember.
Joel was awarded a scholarship and to attend the National School of Public Relations Association Summer Institute workshop in Chicago. She was the only recipient to receive the scholarship across the country. So again, it speaks volumes about the work that you're doing in school public relations, specifically with Mineral Point. It is a $10,000 stipend, and no, I'm just kidding. It is a free registration with $250 worth of expenses paid for by the association. That coupled with the Facebook engagement this week, which would be people that liked or shared some of the posts that were put up, was around 13,000.
133,000.
That's what I said, 133,000. I just think that's off the charts crazy.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
It's
And-
crazy good in a good way. It was a fantastic week, but to be able to publicize it in the manner that we were able to get the pictures out there, to get people not just feeling the atmosphere, but actually being able to be part of it. How far away were they checking in from?
Singapore, Vicky had one, I had one from United Arab Emirates, and these are like alumni and things like that that we're able to follow it all around the globe. We had a big Cornwall following, obviously, you know, so it's pretty exciting. It's amazing what technology can do, but I'm really excited about the scholarship just because it's like, hello, people are noticing Mineral Point. You know, we're a small school, but we do great things, so.
Keep up the great work, thank you. I believe that's it for my odds and ends. You do have a stadium project bulletin here, so again, just review that. Those efforts continue. Recent legislation is worth just taking a quick review of. Kind of in reverse order, You should be familiar with AB 545, which is the CPR life-saving instruction bill. It requires us to give CPR training offered to students in grades 7 through 12 and provide instruction about AEDs or external defibrillators. And that begins in the school year 17-18. So we'll have to put some things in place to make sure that we have those as a part of our integrated classes. Vicki, is there anything you want to add to that in preparation for the CPR law? Are we gonna, any struggles that you see about implementing that law?
No, we've been, teaching it at the high school level. Date myself here, but when I started teaching health years ago, so Quinn will just roll it over to 7th grade. There is a new requirement for the WAA for coaches also, where by 2017-18, all coaches, volunteer or under contract will have to become certified. And we certify our coaches anyway, so.
There's a bill out there to abolish a requirement to provide mental health services at a school that's designated as a school site, or designating a school site as a clinic office. That doesn't really apply to us, but it is around mental health, which is a big piece that people are talking about right now, and I think we just want to stay aware of some of the legislation around mental health services, because there is not a lot of opportunity in Southwest Wisconsin for those services. There's a license to teach vocational education subjects. Basically, it gives some flexibility under the current licensure bill to allow for people in the services of agriculture, child services, food services, you can read there, to receive licenses in a new pathway. And this new pathway just allows you to have an alternative to the traditional licensing certificate. This is again trying to address some of the shortage areas where there's a shortage of teachers that are licensed to teach. And this might be a viable option for our school district down the road. There is a pilot out there for tracking student safety incidents. They're picking one urban, one suburban, one rural school district, and they would like those school districts to basically monitor and report any aggregate data on crimes that are happening in the school. And they would do that twice annually, once halfway through the school year, once at the end, to try to capture the amount of bullying and harassment that are happening in schools. And then I think, in my estimation, to make some decisions on whether they want to become more of a systematic approach to monitoring for harassment and bullying across schools as a possible mandate for all schools. But starting with a real small population, seeing if that data is meaningful, and if it is, that could be a potential requirement down the road.
That's not already pulled.
We do pull suspensions and expulsions, but it doesn't get down to the level of what the infraction is. So it gives you a little bit more detailed report about, was this a fight on the playground, was it a bullying incident or harassment incident that might be a little bit more forthcoming. Names are always redacted to make sure the students aren't identifiable, but it gives you a better sense of what types of infractions are happening in the schools. We are not part of this pilot, and I think they received a small stipend to be able to compile this data and send it to DPI. So watch this bill as it may come out in the future in the form of something the schools have to report. Any questions on the legislation that you're hearing about or other things that are happening?
On the mental health services now, what is this about? Is this people that come into the school, or is it part of the staff, or what are we talking about?
Currently what happens is when mental health comes into a school, they have to declare that school as a clinic. And by a clinic means it...
Yeah, I understand that part, but I mean, who is coming in? Is it...
Currently, in this part of the state, nobody's coming in. We really don't have any mental health services per se. But the point of this law is it eliminates that requirement. You no longer have to designate your school as a clinic. They are trying to expand health services or mental health services to some suburban area schools around the greater Madison, and hopefully that reach continues to move down toward our area and provides us some relief. Any other questions?
This year, why can't we just take out of school budget and be done with it forever? I mean, make it.
The board can choose to do that.
I think it'd save a lot of this. I'm not even gonna take them $20, but it would never run them out, are they?
agenda, we can discuss that and make a motion on it.
Next.
Maybe we can put that on the next meeting.
You're requesting that on the agenda in there?
$20 might not be much to you, Larry, but it's half my monthly allowance.
It is that, it's just getting it done with and be done with it
Okay. That's it for the regular session.
All right.
Motion to go into closed session.
Have people watch you when you feel self-conscious, but maybe some people that don't play well, it's not gonna bother, I don't know.
I think there's, I guess my thought on it is there's some people on the edge that think, well, it's the same five out there, I'm never gonna get in. And all of a sudden, they have to rotate more, maybe I'll stick with it if I do.
Well,
I don't know, I was just curious what your thoughts
Well,
are.
the other thing that I don't like is a lot of the older people express to me that they can't go to the bathroom and I have to go to the half.
We're supposed to reconvene.
Yeah, kids running
we should do
out,
that
popcorn and popcorn.
Motion to
water all the
reconvene in
time.
open session.
I'll move.
And the colleges went back to that, you know, I just,
All in favor, say aye to reconvene in open session.
alright.
Okay, we're in open session. The first motion that I have on the floor is motion by Larry Dolphin, second by Julie Stevenson, to increase the elementary principal salary 2.5% in year one, and an additional 2.5% in year two. All those in favor, maybe you should take the official vote.
All in favor, roll call, Luke, we'll just
Go around the table. Okay. Yeah, do you want to just reaffirm the vote as it was?
It was
4-2 last, but we have Matt here.
4-2 with who?
Kinch and Basting were no. Kinch and Matt, how would you vote on that?
Yes.
Yes, so that'd be a 5-2 with Kinch and Basting no. The second motion then would be to increase the Director of Pupil Services salary 2.5% in year one and an additional 2.5% in year two. That motion was made by Julie Stevenson, seconded by Matt Lindsay.
4-3.
4-3, and I had no votes as Dolphin, Kinch, and Basting.
Okay.
I was thinking, you really want everybody.
Motion to,
As soon as you make the basket, you can't,
Second.
somebody else,
motion by
you
Julie, second by Jason.
know, I could do it.